New Year's Day, January 1st, 2021. God, how I hate saying that. I still getting used to being in the year 2000. There we are 20 years later. Started snowing last night about 8 or 9 o'clock. The forecast said it was supposed to snow between 3 and 6 inches. And we got about 2.5 inches of snow. And then it rained, and then it snowed. And that looks like that's going to be what the pattern is for the next week or so. The temperatures are going to be right in that range where it's right between snow and rain, between 30 degrees and 34, 36 degrees, something like that. And so we're going to get more snow and more rain. I don't know how much snow we're going to get. Like I said, the forecast said anywhere from 3 to 6 inches a day, or it could be rain. Well, I guess I'm going to have to put the chains back on the skid steer on the Bobcat so I can kind of move the snow around and get it out of the way. We'll see what happens, I guess. Anyway, it's warm right now. This stuff is melting. Thought we were going to be in for a tough winter here. Middle of October, it started getting cold, froze up, and then we started getting snow. Had snow and ice here everywhere. In the middle of November, it warmed up and actually got up to 50 degrees one day, but it was up into high 40s, and we got lots of rain. We got 6 inches of rain in 2 days here, and then heavy rain for many days, 2 or 3 inches of rain every couple of days. And then we had some good weather, some drier weather. Well, I was able to get some stuff done outside. Of course, it warmed up and cleared the ice off the road and stuff. I was able to get the airplane home and put away. It dried up out in the woods, or warmed up enough out in the woods I could haul a little bit of rock. So we got about 12 loads of rock hauled in up there on that pad that I'm making. Then it got cold and snowed again. And even though it didn't snow down here, it snowed in the woods roads and got icy there, so that I didn't dare take the trailer back there, try hauling anything. It's country here, it just gets icy and slippery and nasty on those roads. It's just warm enough that everything freezes up and gets cold, and the rain and stuff like that, it melts and then it freezes to the ground, and then it just gets to be ice. So anyway, I couldn't get any more rock hauled than that, but I was able to get some work done outside here. That area up there where the pads are going to be, I got it excavated out some more, and I did some work on the excavator and the skid steer, did a little maintenance on those, done a couple other things. Well, now we're into this weather pattern with the snow and the rain and stuff for a few days. I'm probably not going to be working outside here much. So I guess what I'll do is I'll probably start working on that mobile dimension sawmill frame, start taking that frame and that carriage apart and getting it all cleaned up, and see if I can't get it all working. Get some work done here on this, maybe get that sawmill running here. January 2nd today. We're still in that same weather pattern as yesterday, January 1st. Looks like it's going to be that way for the next week or two anyway, but it snowed again last night. Add a little bit more to it. Now it's raining, really sloppy, crappy stuff. And it's building up. I was hoping maybe it would melt off, but it's not going to. So I got the Bobcat warming up. I'm going to scrape this down a little bit, see if we can't keep it under control, because otherwise it'll get cold and freeze, and then just be ice here on this hillside, and we'll have a toboggan run to get down to the highway. So I'm going to try doing this without putting the chains back on the Bobcat right now, see if I can get it done, but probably wind up having to put the chains on there. Well, I didn't get as much done yesterday as I'd hoped. I was going to try to start working on this sawmill carriage a little bit, but I didn't get to it. I was working on the airplane a little bit. I had a little bit of water in the floats. I'd put some antifreeze in it to keep it from freezing up, but I went in there with a towel and sponged out all the water out of it. I'm going to get them dried out and get them covered up. So I got to do some stuff on the airplane too. It's a mixture of what I got to do between this and the airplane, and the airplane's the most important because I've got to have it to work with. But I've got all winter to do it, but if I wait till later to do it, then it won't get done till the last minute. So anyway, I'll go scrape some of this snow off and then see if we can do anything else. Get the camera out of the rain. I ran the Bobcat for about an hour here and got this snow smeared around. It's better than it was. It's kind of a mess because the ground's not froze up, but that's good. If the ground was froze up, all this snow and rain would be melting and freezing on the ground and making just a sheet of ice. I was able to run the Bobcat without putting the chains on it. Got around pretty good in this, which was good. Kind of left a little bit of a mess because with that bucket on the Bobcat there, it doesn't get all the way down to the ground, so it always leaves a little bit of slush and stuff behind, so it doesn't clean it up very smooth and pretty. But the good thing about that is it doesn't dig into the ground and gouge it up. Got it cleaned up for now, and it's still warm and raining, so hopefully this stuff will melt off. And the forecast is for more snow and more rain. We'll see what happens. But January 3rd, and it's still raining. Nasty day today. We didn't get any snow overnight, thank goodness, and it stayed relatively warm in the rain. And well, the rain has washed off most of the slush that was left behind under the bucket of the Bobcat. So I didn't get a whole lot done yesterday that I thought I was going to get done. I was going to start working on this mobile dimension sawmill carriage here, but I didn't get to that. I had some other things I needed to do. You can hear the whining over there. I took my shop vac and I stuck the blower hose in one float compartment and the sucker hose in the other float compartment in another one, and got it running over there, hoping to help dry those float compartments out. I'm going to go ahead and start working on this sawmill, this frame. This is the lead frame or the number 1 frame or the head frame or whatever it's called, I'm not sure. But anyway, this is the first frame part that the carriage rides on. And I'm going to start working on it. The first thing I'm going to do is take off this lumber gauge. I think that's called a lumber gauge. And this is one of them. And you see it's got a flat plate. This one is bent a little bit. It was over tightened or something anyway. Need to get it straightened out a little bit. But this is the one that's on there is pretty well bent up and rusted up. So I'm going to take it off. You can see it's a plate. It fits up underneath the frame of the mill there. And it's got a couple studs welded in it. Bolts on there. And it fits up like this. And you adjust this end of it in and out to give you the clearance distance for the mill blade, so that when you run this up against it, the mill blade is right up against the wood, and then you can adjust this back for the depth of cut that you want to make. If you want to make a 2x cut, you set this out so that it's 2 inches out, so that when the track runs up, so when you crank it over and it runs up and butts up against the cut portion of the log and stops it there. And so you have 2 of them, one on each end of the track or each end of the log. That's how you adjust your depth of cut when you're cutting on the stacked board methods, which is what I'm going to use to start with. So that's what the first thing I'm going to do is clean these 2 up, get these cleaned up. This one's not in too bad a shape, except it's bent a little bit here. So it's got a little plate here that I guess that slides pretty easy through there, so that's not so bad. It just slides back and forth in there. You adjust it. This chain fits up over a bar here, on a tab on the bar here, and when you crank it, somehow, oh here, there's a little hook on this bar right here, on this bar that goes through, so when you crank it, that cranks this thing out to give you less of a cut, and then back this way would give you a deeper cut. Well, like I said, I'm not sure exactly how this all works. I think then when the carriage goes by, it swings this out of the way. See, I'm not 100% sure on how everything works on it, but that's what we're going to do, is get everything fixed up and working, and then we'll figure out how it works when we get it all together. Okay, that one is off of there. I just used a pry bar to get it off, not hammered it off. I guess that bolt maybe comes out of this side. It's got a countersunk hex head, flathead screw in there. I think it's welded in there. Yeah, it's welded in there. Okay, so this thing's all froze up. It's been beat up. This end of it here is bent. This tag end of it down here that the spring hooks up onto, it's bent. The chain is all rusty. Of course, I got new chain. It's just like bicycle chain. I think it's 3/8 inch chain. I've got some stainless steel chain to put on there. So we'll take that and take that apart and see if we can't get it all fixed up. Those springs are pretty rusty, so I'll see if I can't replace those. Find some replacement springs, and say this thing doesn't pivot like it's supposed to, so it may have to do some soaking in something, or maybe grind that head off of it and rebuild it. I don't know. We'll see. Alright, now the next thing I'm going to do is go to the other end of that, and there's a crank on there that's used for cranking the carriage back and forth on the end stands when you have it up on the end stands. And that's kind of in the way. Well, this is the other end of the number one track, and we've got here that's safety chain, I think, for the towing, and we've got some odds and end pieces here that I'm going to clean up and check up on. But basically what I've got here, this is a crank, and this is what is used when it's on the end stands to crank the track back and forth to adjust the travel on it there. And that, I already took the dial off of that, and that's just going to be in the way for now for what we're doing here now. There's the handle. I'll take that off. That was easy enough. And that's just got banged up from being moved around because they've got the carriage and the mill set up on that trailer so that this is the heavy end, and it's pretty heavy, and it's been banging down on that every time we moved it or anything. So I'm going to take that off of there. Okay, so that doesn't take ½ inch. It's like 7/16. Probably need a wrench on that because that's just got bolts going through there and nuts on the side. I'll probably replace most of this hardware. The CAD plating is all worn off of it, and once that's gone, it doesn't take very long for them to get rusty, really bad rusty. So there's that shaft. Well, that's not too bad a shape. It's a little rusty. The bracket here is bent, so I'll go ahead and probably clean that up, paint it up, and then just get it out of the way. It's January 4th. Haven't made much progress here. Crappy weather out there, still raining, and chilly. It's on the cool side. It's still only getting up into the mid-30s, and raining pretty heavy. Forecast is for a big storm to come through. Actually, the forecast is for several big storms to repeatedly come through. It's supposed to blow tomorrow, Tuesday, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour again, and warm up maybe into 40 or so. So this snow is still hanging around here right now, even though it's just been mostly raining. We get back in the woods a little ways, back on some of the back roads, and there's 4 or 5 inches of snow still back there. So it doesn't take very much altitude change for it to be mostly snow rather than rain. This has been taking up my attention here for the last couple of days, and I'm not making much progress on it. I got those lumber gauges off of there and a couple other little rinky-dink things off of there, but I can't figure out the rest of this. I don't want to make it like Grandpa's watch and get it all apart and not be able to get it back together again. Usually I can figure this stuff out pretty good, but this has taken me a little bit of time. It's a fairly complex machine. Well, not any more complex than the airplane that I just built in my basement, so should be able to get it. I should be able to get this carriage to come back on this track, but for some reason I can't get it to move. There's a clutch or an engagement lever, engagement down here that goes in and out that moves the carriage up and down the track, and this lever right here engages that. Like I said, there's a little dog there on that. It's kind of like an outboard motor shifter. That engages and disengages the travel, and when that's released, you're supposed to be able to move this back and forth on that track, but I can't get it to move at all. So I've been looking at that, trying to figure that out. I took the main blade guard off so I could get a better look at everything there, because that was kind of blocking things. And I just been kind of looking things over and looking at the manual to try to figure this out, and I wasn't having much fun with it yesterday, so I went in and brought up the YouTube and tried to find some videos and stuff on there on the operation of this thing. see if I could figure out some of the things and how they interacted, but the YouTube videos aren't really that good. I can pick up a few little things on there, but mostly they're not very good on the mechanics of the thing. So the manual is okay on telling you how to operate the saw, the mill, how to set it up, both how to set up the end stands and how to set up the end board type systems and how to put everything together. It's not too bad about that. So anyway, I'm going through this a little bit at a time trying to figure it out, and it probably would have been easier if I had run the machine before I started trying to take it apart and see how everything worked together and everything and how it actually worked. But trying to do this cold turkey is a little bit tougher. So this crank here raises and lowers the top edger blade, and you've got a guide gauge on here that tells you how deep it is, how the cut is on that. So that goes up and down. That was froze up, and I greased it up, oiled it up, and I've got it moving up and down. This lever here, of course, is the lever that engages and disengages the travel, and that holds it out there. We've got this here, and when that's down like that, that holds this, well, lets this guard come up. There's a spring on here that pulls that guard up, that lower guard up. So this thing has a roller bearing on the end of it. That thing, it was froze up. I've got it loosened up, but I might check that and see if I can replace it. I don't know. We'll see. But there is a ramp here on the tail end of this track that roller rides up on. And when it comes up, it does two things. It pushes this lower blade guard down, because that's coming out of the log there and coming out into where the man is standing, the operator is standing. That pushes that down. It also levers when it's in reverse, when it's coming back, and see that trips that lever like that. It brings it up and puts it into neutral, which stops. Well, my idea of moving this carriage up, this track up onto the sawhorses didn't work out quite as well as I'd hoped. This carriage without the motor on it is so heavy over on this side here that it's tipping over. It wants to tip over. So I'm going to have to wait until my son gets here to give me a hand with this. Meanwhile, I've got to document how everything goes together here, or try to document how things are put together here on this thing. I was going to try to do that with a camera, but my camera, the batteries on it aren't much good. I just took one off the charger and it's still not good enough to run the camera with, so I'm going to use a video camera here for that. So this is the main shaft, the hub here, the shaft that the big saw blade runs on, operates on. It's got a big nut here on the outboard end, and then there's a big spacer here that's about 4 inches long, and there's a collar. I don't know whether that collar goes on the outside of that spacer or whether that spacer butts up against it. Looks like that collar goes over that spacer, or the collar there looks like it goes over that spacer. And we'll look on the inside, there's another collar there, I think. And then we've got the lower blade guard, and then the bearing and the shaft goes through. And there's the main pulleys that go up to, I guess those are what go and drive everything. That comes from the drive, and there's the big drive pulleys there that come off the engine with all the belts on it. So, well, this stand right here with this arm on it is the one that adjusts the speed control of the mill. That's bolted on. Something's bolted. Oh no, that's the adjustment there for the tension, for the how many feet-pounds or whatever it takes to stop the mill from operating. And we've got the crank here for the guide, the edger blade guide. And then this is that. Okay, so this is welded on there onto the main frame. Now this is the arm, trip arm. It's got one pivot bolt in it here on a welded on stub that comes down off of it. And then this is the stand for the forward and reverse lever. And that's got two little bolts on there to hold it on. It's got a little arm here, a catch here to hold it in neutral. Adjustment bolt on here that adjusts where the trip hits it. One bolt there. There's a pin here where this arm pivots on this lower section of it here, and then that goes through a pad down here, and that looks like that's bolted on to this. Yeah, well, I don't know what we got for bolts. So we've got this, got one little bolt on it here. That's the catch for the drive engagement, the carriage drive engagement. And then we got, this is a tightener for the adjustment for the upper edger blade. This tightens that up to lock it in place. Got another shaft that goes through here that's got a pin on it on this end, and that goes through to the other end. I'm not sure what that's for. It comes down here. That hooks into the forward reverse thing somehow, so that must be a trip. Yeah, that's what it is a trip for the forward reverse. Here's a nut here that's pinned on to this shaft. It goes off that with a wedge shape towards the front of the saw, threaded section on there with a nut on it. That shaft goes down through a little collar there, bearing plate. It's bolted onto the lower section of the carriage, and then that goes down here, and that's onto this. This is that roller, and that goes back and forth to keep the saw from bucking from the edger blade, and that's all froze up. That's got to come apart there. Here's the upper edger blade and the lower edger blade, main edger blade. Okay, so there's a yoke there for the upper edger blade, raising it up and down, and it comes up and down on that shaft right there. It's keyed into that, splined into that shaft. There's the belts and the pulleys for driving the edger blades. Main bearing for that. Okay, so this shaft comes through there. There's a gear and a rack. Well, this bearing here for the edger blades shaft has an adjustment on it here. These are the holders for the fuel tank. Fuel tank here. This roller right here is supposed to go up, I think, against those belts to hold them tight, and they kind of go at an angle, so that it's an idler belt for that. And there's supposed to be another one underneath there, I think. Here's the chain and stuff for the drive, for the carriage drive, upper end. There's that clutch for that. It goes through a main bearing there. There's the pulley for driving it. And there's the rigmarole for that. You get one pulley out here, another set of pulleys in here. Well, this is the arm that adjusts the speed. Alright, that's as good as I'm going to get here for now. So I'm going to pull this main blade off of there, that big blade off of there, and see if that will lighten everything up enough that I can get it to not to tip over. Well, that didn't quite go the way I'd planned. I'd loosened that bolts up. They're J-bolts on the trailer with clamps on them that fit over the rails, bottom rails on that mill. I loosened those up and took those off, and that's when I discovered that mill was heavy, too heavy on one side to sit flat. I was trying to get it up on those sawhorses, and it wasn't going very good, so I thought I'd take that big blade off of there and kind of take some of the weight off that one side. It's going to make some difference, but with everything on there, it's still a lot of weight on that one side. But I got the wrench on there and started trying to take that nut off of there, and everything just went cattywampus on me there. So I got my come along and a strap and picked that up. It was all laying on the trailer and laying screwball on those sawhorses, and anyway, it wasn't a very pretty sight. I wasn't too happy with that. Didn't say any swear words though, so it wasn't too bad. Anyway, I got the strap and hooked onto that carriage, and I've got everything hoisted up in the air. Now the good thing about that is now I can see everything actually, and that might lay flat on those sawhorses there with that carriage, with that big blade down and stuff, and I'll be able to see underneath there. That was one of the things I was having trouble with, was seeing underneath. Anyway, it's up in the air. I can see a little better underneath there and see what's jamming up that carriage, why it won't move, and see what it takes to get it off there. And that's just to take those lower rollers off on this side of that 1L bracket there, that 1L track. And I can see underneath it now there where the edger blades are a lot better, and I can see that one guide, that shoe there, is not bent. That's the way, I mean, it's bent, but it's bent that way intentionally. You couldn't tell from the way it was whether it was bent intentionally or it had gotten bent, but I can see that's the way it's supposed to work, and that's probably what moves those lumber gauges out of the way. Anyway, I guess we're making progress. It doesn't seem like it, but we're not regressing anyway.